everybody to Grand Teton National Park for an official oversight field hearing of the Committee on Natural Resources. Thank you, Superintendent Jenkins. My name is Bruce Westerman, and I serve as the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, and I represent the 4th District of Arkansas. I'm grateful to be joined by the representative for the entire state of Wyoming, who probably needs no introduction, Ms. Harriet Hageman, and I want to thank her for inviting us to her district. We're also joined by several of our bipartisan colleagues on the Natural Resources Committee, and actually a couple of them are stuck in traffic and will join us as we get going more. But and one of those is Amada Radawagan from American Samoa. We also have a member who is going to be here, Jeff Crank from Colorado, whose flight got canceled last night. We have Teresa Ledger Fernandez from New Mexico. Miss Emily, I'm not sure she got canceled too, and Susie Lee from Nevada, who's also on her way. We're also joined by one of our colleagues that's not on the committee, Representative Troy Downing from Montana, and I'd like to ask unanimous consent that he be allowed to participate in today's hearing from the dais. All right. Without objection, so ordered. Before we begin, I'll remind everybody about the rules of decorum for an official congressional proceeding, which that is what we're having today. I ask that there not be any kind of disruption regarding the testimony given here today. It is important that we respect the rules of the committee and of the House and to allow the members and the public to hear our proceedings. Now we will begin our hearing with an opening prayer. We will be led by Ms. Joanne Goldfarb, a leader in the Jackson Hole Jewish community. And then, after the prayer, we will have a pledge.
I'm doing the pledge.
Okay. We'll rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I was on the plane too.
We also have. I now will recognize the ranking member designee, Representative Ledger Fernandez, for any opening statement she would like to make.
To also every single one of those cars that's stuck in line, the people who are hiking, the boaters, the people engaged in the picnic, everybody, because it is our joint effort that makes our national parks what they are. And it is how we are come to symbolize what America is. America is a place where we all come together and where we all belong. And the place that reminds us best of how we belong are places like this, our national parks, our national treasures. One of the witnesses today in his testimony talked about awe, A-W-E. The awe that we feel in natural places. We can feel awe when we look up at the Tetons. feel awe. And I want to give thanks to, I wasn't here, I came the year after this law was passed. But I love the fact that it is also a bipartisan law. Imagine that it was passed with your leadership, with the leadership of the late Chairman Raul Grijalva, who I recognize as one of our ancestors now, one of the people who came before us, signed into law by President Trump. This is bipartisanship at work. It has made a difference now in that we have seen projects funded by both aspects of this law, and both aspects are very important across every 50 states. We have heard and driven on how it's made a difference here at Lake in the Grand Tetons. I know in my own state of New Mexico, it is made of difference as well. We value our national parks there. And we know that it is also an interesting combination of both the reliance and the interconnection of energy development, which funds it, and then our beautiful outdoors and conservation, which benefits it, right? That there are ways in which we are interconnected, and we need to value that and recognize that both aspects need to be supported and recognized and honored. Last year in 2024, under the Biden administration, we had the largest output and development we produced more energy than ever before. And I am grateful for that, not just because I happen to represent the Permian Basin, the San Juan Basin, where a lot of energy development happens, but also because then it could fund the good work that we need in Teton, that we need at Grand Canyon, that we need at Chaco Canyon, that we need in parks across our country. I also want to recognize the fact that it is the Park Service and all your employees who get this work done. And that it is important that we maintain the personnel, because it does take boots on the ground to make sure that we protect our parks. And I hope that we restore and we're able to have the full complement of employees at our parks so they can get this work done. So once again, thank you to all of our members who come. Thank you to everybody here who makes this kind of beauty accessible for all Americans and all visitors. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Ledger Fernandez. I now recognize the gentlelady from the state of Wyoming, our host today, Ms. Hageman, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing in this beautiful, beautiful spot. I've had several folks that we work with back in Washington, D.C. come and talk to me today about the reception that they have received here and the help that they have received from the National Park Service personnel especially. I want to make sure that I reiterate what they said, which is this is one of the very best groups they've ever had the opportunity to work with. And I know that logistically it's not easy to do what they have done, what you have done in terms of bringing all of this accoutrement here to the Jackson, set it up with this incredible backdrop that we couldn't paint and couldn't photograph to have the same kind of experience. I am honored to represent the state of Wyoming, and I'm very honored to be one of the members of the Natural Resources Committee. This is my second term in Congress, and I have definitely enjoyed working with the other members and addressing the issues that we have over the last 2.5 years. The Great American Outdoors Act, or GAOA, established the Mandatory Legacy Restoration Fund, which received $1.9 billion annually from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2025, $9.5 billion in total for deferred maintenance needs of the National Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, BLM, and BIE. The National Park Service received $1.33 billion, or 70% of the overall funds annually. Instead of focusing narrowly on maintenance, however, I believe that the next iteration of GAOA should concentrate on projects that modernize our parks, enhance public access, improve infrastructure, and create new outdoor recreation opportunities. In light of the $10 billion increase in the National Park Service's deferred maintenance backlog over the past several years, Congress must enact reforms to ensure transparency, increase accountability, and wisely steward taxpayer dollars. In 2023, 325.5 million people visited national parks, spending an estimated $26.4 billion in local gateway regions, which supported 415,000 jobs and generated $55.6 billion in economic output. In 2024, more than 3.6 million people visited Grand Teton, spending an estimated $1.74 billion in Teton County, Wyoming. Tourism in Teton County that year supported approximately 8,480 jobs and generated $103.8 million in sales tax revenue. This morning I was reading the metrics for what has occurred so far this year, and it appears that 2025 is going to be another banner year for tourism in this part of the country. For fiscal year 24, Grand Teton had an estimated $343 million in deferred maintenance and repairs, plus $14 million of annual routine maintenance needs, while the park's infrastructure assets included 414 miles of trails, 33 campgrounds, and 151 miles of paved roads. To date, Grand Teton received $77.8 million in GAOA funding for 4 projects, addressing maintenance on the Moose Wilson Road, rehabilitating cabins, replacing wastewater systems, and addressing safety issues at various buildings. Using a combination of GAOA funds, recreation fees, and general appropriation funding, Grand Teton also has 13 planned infrastructure projects totaling $33.1 million, which would enhance visitor experience by improving cabins and several trails. I do believe, however, that there is reform needed. There are significant concerns that the GAOA funds were not appropriately distributed between transportation and non-transportation projects. The statute requires 65% for non-transportation, but that did not adequately address some of our smaller parks and the needs that they have, and it disproportionately prioritized urban cities over our rural crown jewels such as the Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. For example, of the 10 largest pot projects funded under the GAOA from fiscal year 21 to 24, only 2 projects conspicuously located in Washington, D.C. and San Francisco, California, were unrelated to transportation or replacing wastewater systems. In other words, I think that it's time for a new iteration of the GAOA, and again, focusing on things such as visitor experience and making sure that we have the access that we need so that we can improve the access and the experience for all people who visit these absolutely beautiful places. Thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. Thank you for all of the other folks who have come to listen to what we're doing. It's exciting to be back in Wyoming, to bring my friends from all around the country. We appreciate your attention to all of this, and we look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Representative Hageman. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good job.
Thank you.
It is an honor to be here today beneath the soaring Grand Tetons to hold this hearing on a very important subject. And as Ms. Ledger Fernandez said, this is a bipartisan issue, and it's on improving and reauthorizing the Great American Outdoors Act, which as we traveled into the park this morning, we saw some of the benefits of that with the entries, the roadway. We did a quick walk down by Jenny Lake and saw some of the beautiful landscape architecture that's been done. I commented to the Park Service that, you know, if you look back in the history of our country, if you look at the buildings in Washington, D.C., the people who came before us didn't halfway do things. They did it right. And what was done here was done right. And the American public expects that, and they deserve that. And if we're going to interface with these beautiful federal lands, I don't think we have any option but to do it the best that it can be done. And it all comes back to the experience of interacting with our parks, with our federal lands, GAOA. It's not just the Park Service, the Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, BLM, and others benefit from this funding. And we want to do things right. We want to do it where it's lasting. We're trying to address a huge maintenance backlog, and the best way to address maintenance backlogs is to build things that are going to last for a long time. And, our national parks conserve the richness of America's landscapes, whether from Alaska's icy fjords and Utah's Red Rock Canyons to California's towering giant sequoias and the misty peaks of Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains. From Wyoming's roaring thermal geysers to the thermal hot springs in my home state of Arkansas. Our national parks also connect us all as Americans and are part of our shared heritage. As I mentioned, I grew up in Arkansas with Hot Springs National Park as my backyard. In the summer, my family and I still love to float the Buffalo National River, to hunt and fish and hike Arkansas's many beautiful trails. As we approach this nation's 250th birthday next year, we're reminded of our shared responsibility not only to effectively maintain these natural wonders, but to create new opportunities for the next generation of American adventurers to enjoy what many have called America's best idea. 5 years ago, President Trump signed the Great American Outdoors Act into law, creating the largest investment in our national parks and public lands in generations. This landmark legislation was designed to tackle long-standing deferred maintenance backlogs and revitalize the infrastructure that more than 320 million tourists rely on every year. As the Great American Outdoors Act approaches its sunset later this month, our task is twofold. First, to examine what worked and what didn't work under the first iteration of the law, and second, to chart a path forward that ensures our parks are modernized, accessible, and ready to welcome visitors for our country's next 250 years. This is important not only for the landscapes we treasure, but also for the communities that rely on them. In 2023, visitors to national parks contributed more than $26 billion to local economies, supporting over 400,000 jobs nationwide. And as Ms. Hageman mentioned, here in Grand Teton, tourists generated an estimated $1.75 billion in spending last year, supporting 8,500 local jobs. But without important reforms, we cannot realize the full benefits of the Great American Outdoors Act, and those benefits can have immense impact on our parks and our gateway communities and the people that visit. During the first round of GOA, more than $200 million was spent rehabilitating the George Washington Memorial Parkway, a commuter highway in Washington, D.C. Think about how far that money could have gone if we'd spent it fixing up bathrooms, modernizing campgrounds, and repairing trails at parks across the country. Millions of families travel to our national parks each year to hike, bike, camp, horseback ride, fish, canoe, or simply enjoy the splendor of America's great outdoors. We need to ensure that investments are made in projects that improve access and create more of those recreation opportunities in our crown jewels and not necessarily fixing commuter highways in Washington, D.C. Families across America love our national parks, not just for the lifelong memories they create, but because they are one of the last truly affordable vacations. Yeah. But every American family that visited Grand Teton today paid the same fee as international visitors, even though our taxes also subsidize our national parks. We are one of the few countries that do not give a discount to our own citizens visiting the parks. In Tanzania, international visitors to Serengeti National Park pay $83, while citizens pay a mere $4. In Ecuador, international visitors pay $170 more to visit Galapagos National Park compared to local residents. A modest surcharge for foreign visitor fees can be reinvested in our parks to ensure they are maintained and modernized for generations to come. It's important to point out that the Great American Outdoors Act currently receives funding from energy revenue, as Ms. Ledger-Fernandez said. This includes oil, natural gas, coal, and renewables. Through passage of the big reconciliation bill earlier this summer, we created an additional $16 billion in energy revenue. That's enough to keep the program going for another 8 years. Finally, reauthorizing the Great American Outdoors Act gives us the opportunity to better harness the transformative power of public-private partnerships. We're going to hear more about that in the testimony today. Here at Jenny Lake, we can see the benefits of these partnerships firsthand. In my district in Arkansas, $18 million investment in historic bathhouses at Hot Springs National Park facilitated a leasing structure that revitalized Bathhouse Row with new businesses, creating nearly $100 million in economic growth. Here at Grand Teton, we've already seen what GOA can do. More than $77 million has been invested to improve roads, cabins, and trailheads. In Hot Springs, GOA investments are making a difference in repairing and upgrading the Maurice Bathhouse. Yet our parks still face more than $23 billion in deferred maintenance. More parks and gateway communities stand to benefit from this funding. Clearly, our job is not finished, and we cannot afford to let this moment pass. Together, we can restore and revitalize our national parks, ensuring access to inspire the next generation of American greatness. Before I yield back, I want to take a moment to thank each of our witnesses for taking time out of your busy schedules to lend your expertise on these important topics. And, there's thousands of people we could have testifying at this, and you're here today speaking on behalf of yourself, but on behalf of all the parks across the country. So thank you for what you're doing. Your insights are incredibly valuable to us, and we look forward to hearing your testimony. With that being said, we'll now move on to our panel of witnesses. Let me remind the witnesses that under committee rules, you must limit your oral statement to 5 minutes, but your entire statement will appear in the hearing record. To begin your testimony, please press the on button on the microphone. We do use timing lights. When you begin, the light will turn green. At the end of 5 minutes, the light will turn red, and I will ask you to please complete your statement. And for anybody who's not familiar with congressional hearings, this is the way hearings are done in D.C. or any place else we do them. After the witnesses all make their opening statements, then all the members will have an opportunity to ask the witnesses questions. First, I want to introduce Superintendent Chip Jenkins. He's done an incredible job here, and not only with the Great American Outdoors Act funding, but helping implement programs like the Explore Act that we passed in the last Congress. And if you don't think there's any bipartisanship in Congress anymore, the Explore Act got 100% of the vote in the House, and it got 100% of the vote in the Senate, and the president obviously signed it. And the Explore was about outdoor recreation, which ties in with our public lands. Superintendent Jenkins, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Westerman, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you today to speak about the Great American Outdoors Act's National Parks and Public Land Legacy Restoration Fund. GOA has been transformative for the National Park Service and has supported significant projects right here at Grand Teton National Park, where I have the honor to serve as superintendent. On behalf of the department, I want to express our deep appreciation for the investment Congress has made in GOA and for this opportunity to highlight the lasting impact it's had in Grand Teton. The reason Grand Teton National Park is a national park is literally looming over us right now. The iconic landscape, combined with unparalleled wildlife. The park welcomes close to 4 million visitors annually, and this year we're on track to have our second busiest year on record. GOA has been critical in helping us to support these visitors by enabling us to address maintenance repairs long overdue. With Legacy Restoration Fund support, we have been able to replace the failing lift station at Coulter Bay, which was originally built in 1969 and serves nearly 2 million people annually. The replacement provides safe, reliable operations after years of system strain and outages. It also protects the water quality of Jackson Lake and the Snake River. Through GOA, we're also able to improve visitor access at the Granny Canyon entrance, the Granite Trailhead, and upgrade equestrian facilities at Poker Flats to better serve riders and outfitters. These are more than just construction projects. For our visitors, they are investments that protect visitor safety, preserve resources, and ensure that future generations can enjoy Grand Teton as we do today. In short, these efforts make an incredible difference for the folks who visit Grand Teton every year. Despite these successes at Grand Teton, our deferred maintenance backlog and infrastructure needs remain significant across the entire NPS. Our infrastructure is not always adequate for current visitation, let alone for increasing visitation. GOA's Legacy Restoration Fund has allowed us to plan and execute large, complex projects that we would not otherwise complete with our regular base funding. Looking ahead, here at Grand Teton, Coulter Bay is well positioned for any future priority deferred maintenance projects. Coulter Bay was originally designed as a pilot for Mission 66, with work starting in 1953 to construct new facilities for the post-World War II visitation. The infrastructure is suffering from over 75 years of wear and tear, and it's not meeting our visitor needs, nor matching the beauty that is Coulter Bay. Central to addressing increasing visitation is our need to effectively distribute people to lesser used areas of the park. We need to rejuvenate the infrastructure to support visitor access for the rest of the 21st century. Just as Mission 66 addressed needs of its time, GOA is allowing us to renew and modernize those original investments to ensure millions of visitors can experience the iconic wildlife and scenery that is America. GOA is particularly relevant as we prepare for America 250th celebration in 2026, when parks like Grand Teton will be called upon to welcome record numbers of visitors. GOA helps to ensure that our nation's most iconic landscapes continue to showcase America's natural heritage at a moment of such historical significance. Grand Teton benefits from extraordinary philanthropic and community partnerships who share in the stewardship of this park. GOA provided the certainty that encourages those partners to step forward with confidence, knowing that the federal government is committed to addressing the park's most pressing infrastructure needs and that their contributions will be more effective. When Congress invests in the backbone systems such as roads, utilities, and facilities, it creates the foundation that allows partners to focus their resources on the elements that inspire visitors more directly, such as education centers, trail enhancements, and visitor amenities. In this way, GO is not only a federal investment in deferred maintenance, it's also a catalyst for additional investment by the private sector and local communities. It allows us to match large-scale essential infrastructure improvements with philanthropic contributions that add significant value and elevate the visitor experience. This model of shared investment strengthens the public-private partnership tradition that's long been part of Grand Teton's story and ensures that every federal dollar stretches further in service of both resources and visitors. A positive experience visiting Grand Teton has ripple effects as visitors generate close to $1 billion in revenue for the local economy, sustaining local tourism, creating good-paying jobs, protecting clean water, conserving wildlife, and ensuring that millions of visitors each year experience a safe, well-maintained park. GOA has vastly improved the visitor experience throughout the national park system. The President's 2026 budget proposes to reauthorize President Trump's GOA Legacy Restoration Fund. The Legacy Restoration Fund is critical to protecting one of America's most iconic landscapes and ensuring that our shared national treasures remain safe, accessible, and inspiring for generations to come. Thank you for your leadership and for the opportunity to share Grand Teton's story. I look forward to taking questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Jenkins. I now recognize Ms. Julie Calder, the chair of the Jackson Hole Travel and Tourism Board from Wilson, Wyoming. Ms. Calder, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Westerman, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, and members of the committee. My name is Julie Calder, and I am the board chair for the Jackson Hole Travel and Tourism Board, Vice President of Guest Experience for Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, resident of Teton County for more than 25 years, a hospitality professional, and a mother of 2 teenage girls. I am honored to be here to speak in support of reauthorizing the Great American Outdoors Act. In Wyoming, tourism is more than an industry. It is a cornerstone of our economy and community well-being. The leisure and hospitality sector employs more than 38,000 Wyomingites, the highest now on record, and accounted for over 13% of all jobs in the state. Wages in this sector continue to grow and stand at $1.1 billion. In Teton County alone, travel generated $1.7 billion in visitor spending and supported more than 8,400 local jobs. Without visitor paid taxes, every household in Teton County would shoulder an additional $9,800 in taxes annually to maintain current levels of public services. The Jackson Hole Travel and Tourism Board manages 60% of visitor-paid lodging taxes, which totaled almost $11 million last year. These funds not only support marketing and visitor services, but also core community priorities like public safety, fire and EMS, transportation, parks and recreation, and cultural preservation. We see ourselves as stewards of both the visitor experience as well as the community experience. Our work is deeply connected to our federal land partners. Jackson Hole is fortunate to sit at the doorstep of Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, the Bridger Teton National Forest, and the National Elk Refuge. Together, these lands welcome more than 4 million people each year. Our partnerships with the Park Service, the Forest Service, and our local government allow us to invest core stewardship initiatives like visitor education, as seen here, public land ambassadors, wildlife safety campaigns, also exemplified here, all designed to protect our resources while ensuring a world-class visitor experience. At Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, we see guest experience as central to that responsibility. Our team is committed to delivering a world-class visit that balances high expectations with the realities of increased demand. We've taken bold steps to manage the guest journey end-to-end, including modernizing reservation systems, implementing daily capacity limits, investments in transportation and parking, limits on tickets and pass sales, and real-time digital communications. These efforts ensure that service, safety, and enjoyment remain paramount even as visitation grows. JHMR works closely with partners from Grand Teton National Park and under a lease with the Bridger Teton National Forest to the Travel and Tourism Board, Chamber of Commerce, and local hospitality industry to create a seamless destination experience. While this process is not always easy or simple, years of collaboration and innovation have positioned us to continue leading with guest experience at the heart of everything we do. These approaches demonstrate how public and private sectors can work together to balance access, sustainability, and economic vitality. The Great American Outdoors Act has been essential in addressing deferred maintenance needs on our public lands, ensuring safe roads, maintained trails, and functioning facilities that residents and visitors alike rely on. But the need remains great. Continued funding is vital to sustain the recreation-based economy, to protect the extraordinary natural and cultural resources that draw millions of visitors and support the communities like ours that serve as gateways to these places. People do not travel from across the globe to see something ordinary. They come to Jackson Hole to experience landscapes and wildlife found nowhere else on earth. The sight of a moose wading in the Snake River, the sound of a bugling elk in autumn, the view of the Tetons rising dramatically above the valley floor, just like right here. Even a single animal can inspire worldwide attention. Grizzly 399, who raised multiple litters of cub in the view of park visitors, became a national celebrity and the living symbol of why this ecosystem is so treasured. These experiences are irreplaceable. As a community, we take pride in our role as stewards of this uniqueness, ensuring that it endures for future generations. I urge the committee to renew the Great American Outdoors Act. It's an investment not only in public lands, but in the people, communities, and economies that depend on them. It is an affirmation of our shared responsibility to protect what is most unique and most beautiful and most defining about our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calder. I now recognize Mr. Taylor Phillips for 5 minutes. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the committee. Thank you for being here today and then for the opportunity to testify. This past weekend, my family enjoyed time under the Tetons on Lee Lake. We used park restrooms, trails, boat ramps, and backcountry campsites. I'll never forget lying on the beach under Mount Moran with my children, listening to a loon in the distance as they marveled at the Milky Way. America's greatness isn't measured in skyscrapers, but by the landscapes that inspire awe and connect us to each other. Our national parks and public lands are the very soul of this country. My name is Taylor Phillips. I'm the founder of Eco Tour Adventures, a guiding company that helps visitors connect with this ecosystem through wildlife viewing and natural history interpretation. I also founded Wildlife for Tomorrow, a program of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's nonprofit partner, the Wildlife Fund. And then we connect travel and tourism businesses with conservation. In addition, I serve on the boards of the Wyoming Office of Tourism and the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Business Alliance. When I started Eco Tour Adventures in 2008, it was just me. Today, we employ 40 individuals with livable wages, full health benefits, and retirement. These are real jobs in the tourism space. This year, our payroll will reach approximately $2 million, directly reinvested in our local economy. We are one of more than 70 guiding companies in our region, and last year together, we introduced over 81,000 visitors to this park. This story is repeated across the country where small businesses thrive because of our parks and public lands. In Grand Teton, I see every day how committed the NPS is to protecting the resources, partnering with the local community, and providing the best possible visitor experience. But our businesses also depend on the basics, the roads, trails, restrooms, campgrounds, and without them and without healthy wildlife and access to public lands, our livelihoods vanish. We faced this before. In the 50s and 60s, Mission 66 modernized visitors, centers, campgrounds, and roads, preparing the Park Service for a new generation. It was a bold investment that paid dividends for decades. The Great American Outdoor Act is delivering a 21st century Mission 66. GOA has begun addressing decades of deferred maintenance, making parks safer and more welcoming. But much remains. Take Coulter Bay, one of the park's busiest areas where outdated infrastructure struggles to keep up with visitation. GOA's benefits reach beyond northwest Wyoming to our national forests, BLM lands, and other federal lands from the Red Desert to the south to the Bighorns in the north. These dollars must be invested wisely, expanding access while protecting the very resources that make these places special. GOA is one tool to assure that the visitor economy stays intact. This is more than conservation, it's smart investment. Studies show every dollar invested with the Park Service generates about $10 in economic return through visitor spending, job creation, and local economic activity. Representative Hageman, thank you for being here today. Your support for reauthorizing GOA would send a strong bipartisan message that Wyoming values its public lands, wildlife, and its economic future. In addition, I ask that the entire Wyoming delegation support the movement to strategically make this investment. In Wyoming, wildlife drives our economy. Travel and tourism is our second largest industry after energy and the largest private sector employer. Visitors don't come to see gas stations. They come to see this and the wildlife and intact ecosystems and landscapes. That's why we created Wildlife for Tomorrow. Already more than 90 Wyoming businesses have invested in wildlife conservation because they know their livelihoods depend on it. This is where GOA and the Wildlife Crossing Pilot Program work hand in hand. GOA keeps lands whole. The crossing program keeps them connected. The pilot program is working, but needs will not end in 5 years. That's why I urge you all to help make this a permanent program. John D. Rockefeller Jr. said it best, very integral in the creation here of Grand Teton and other national lands. I know of no expenditure of money in my life that I can look back upon with such satisfaction as the money I have given to these parks. Wildlife and public lands aren't just part of our heritage, they are part of our future. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the great American outdoors.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for your testimony. I now recognize Ms. Kristen Bringle, the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at the National Parks Conservation Association out of Washington, D.C. Ms. Bringle, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thanks so much, Chairman Westerman and Representative Ledger-Fernandez. Thanks for the invitation. The National Parks Conservation Association is the nation's leading advocacy group working to protect and preserve the national park system for future generations. The bipartisan passage of the Great American Outdoors Act was a massive achievement. It has been transformational for both repairing infrastructure in our national parks and public lands, as well as conserving more lands through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. The law permanently funded LWCF with no additional authorization required, allowing LWCF's critical conservation work to continue into the future. But we still have more work to do fixing our parks and public lands, and agree with all of you that we need to extend the Legacy Restoration Fund. It's exciting to join you today to discuss an absolute success of the federal government, thanks to the investment made by Congress and the Trump administration. Our national parks and public lands are getting new, modernized, and durable visitor centers, roads, trails, bridges, water facilities, campgrounds, and much more. When the Great American Outdoors Act passed, we knew it would be a monumental feat to not only fix older infrastructure, but to bring these facilities up to modern standards and ensure that they last longer than previous construction. That's exactly what the Interior Department, U.S. Forest Service, and the National Park Service are doing. The Park Service in particular is meeting its historical preservation mandates while better protecting ecosystems. The Maurice Bathhouse in Hot Springs is preserving the original architecture and also safely upgrading the facility to attract new leaseholders, like you were talking about, Chairman. The Yellowstone Bridge that will be replaced is also realigning the river corridor to promote wildlife habitat. These improvements are game changers for historic preservation, visitors, and river ecosystems. This is consistent with other projects around the country where the agencies are thinking long term. If we want to continue to have a world-class national park system, our parks need upgraded infrastructure, communications, and technology that meet the needs of the modern world and the modern visitor. It's important to note the agencies have been addressing the scope, scale, and frequency of catastrophic events like flooding we saw here in Yellowstone, Blue Ridge Parkway, Great Smokies, as well as avalanches, landslides, and fires. They are teaching us the importance of planning for the future, not today. This is also going to cost more than we expected because we shouldn't just repair facilities. We may need to replace them with better alternatives. So far, the Park Service has addressed $4.7 billion in deferred maintenance by improving over 2,300 assets, including more than 400 historic landmarks, 370 roads and bridges, more than 570 miles of trails, and 40 campgrounds and picnic areas. This is a lot of work that's been done so far for the last 5 years. In eastern Montana, we've seen even repairing dams, roads, and other infrastructure, and Bandelier is getting a new underground utility system fixed. With the Great American Outdoors Act Legacy Restoration Fund, many critical projects would be waiting indefinitely to be repaired. Facilities could lose functionality or close, or infrastructure would fail. Because projects big and small are happening, this law is having a positive economic impact in communities, and about 20,000 jobs are created every year. Youth are getting trained in learning skills, and communities can now plan for the future, knowing their neighboring parks are fixed and ready for decades of visitors. This generation, our generation, is leaving an impressive legacy for our kids and grandkids. We are taking care of our collective inheritance, and we are leaving it in better condition for them. We should be proud of the current investment, and we are thrilled to know we are here today to discuss another multi-billion-dollar, multi-year investment. But I also came here to warn you that we won't be able to continue this success without the planners, engineers, compliance officers, budget experts, landscape architects, maintenance staff, carpenters, and so many more Park Service staff who make it possible for the Great American Outdoors Act to fund the work on the ground. The Park Service has lost 24% of its permanent workforce since January. We are losing experts and people who know our parks inside and out. The Denver Service Center is the centralized planning, design, and construction management office for the Park Service. They are critical to executing GAOA projects. They are down 20%, more than 20% of their staff right now since last October. This tremendous loss of staff does not bode well for the next construction season or for the new list of projects under this law. The current hiring freeze gives us no hope these positions could be filled anytime soon. We believe the committee should push to have the administration lift the hiring freeze for the Park Service, reverse the DOI consolidation and put Park Service staff back in their jobs, and prohibit a reduction in force. The Park Service manages a world-class park system that visitors flock to see this inescapable beauty and to learn about our history. We love our national parks, but they won't be protected and preserved without the dedicated staff who honor and care for them. I'm glad to be here today. We want to work with all of you in this committee to ensure our national parks are well-staffed and with the best stewards in the world, and we build these projects to modern standards for our kids and grandkids to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bringle. And finally, I'd like to recognize our final witness, Ms. Leslie Matson, the president of the Grand Teton National Park Foundation in Wilson, Wyoming. Ms. Matson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Westerman, Ranking Member Leger-Fernandez, and members of the committee, thank you for coming to Grand Teton. Your presence here shows your commitment to our national parks. I'm honored to serve as the president of the Grand Teton National Park Foundation. Our organization has partnered with the National Park Service for 27 years and has raised more than $150 million to improve visitor experiences, conserve wildlife and natural resources, preserve cultural heritage, and engage young people in hands-on conservation. You can see that impact right here at Jenny Lake. In 2019, in partnership with the National Park Service, we completed a comprehensive renewal of this area. This was made possible by $15 million in private philanthropy that leveraged $6 million in federal funds. This area was once marked by congestion and confusion. The most commonly asked questions were, where is the lake and where is the bathroom? Together with our partner, we addressed those issues, and the result is a world-class, accessible visitor plaza and a sustainable network of backcountry trails that welcomes millions each year while protecting a popular and beloved place. Jenny Lake is one example among many. Our organization leveraged an $8.5 million congressional appropriation to raise $17 million in private sector gifts to construct the Craig Thomas Discovery and Visitor Center. Our Snake River Gateways project has improved recreational access to the river at hugely popular sites while providing for natural resource protection. We're also advancing projects at Moore Monroe and Taggart Lake to improve the visitor experience and ease pressure on iconic and popular areas. Over the past 2 decades, our philanthropic investment is commonly more than double the federal investment for these major capital initiatives. Our supporters are individuals, foundations, and corporations who want to know that their philanthropic support is complementing, not replacing, core federal investment in national parks. They don't see their support as venture startup capital. They see it as a contribution to the commitment our nation has to a park that will soon celebrate its 100th anniversary in 2029. Every project we undertake as a partner has a federal investment. The reauthorization of the Great American Outdoors Act and Legacy Restoration Fund can sharpen this model. First, we can shift from only focusing on the deferred maintenance of the past to also preparing our parks for the future. This means modernizing visitor-facing infrastructure that improves access, education, and resource protection. Second, by allowing flexible matching and the ability to transfer federal matching dollars directly to trusted partners like us, we can contract and deliver quality work in a timely manner. This stretches every dollar. Improving public-private mechanisms for partnership will create more flexibility. Extending the Great American Outdoors Act better aligns with how complex, high-impact projects are planned and delivered. It will provide the predictability needed for federal managers, partners like us, and contractors. I can tell you with great confidence from my 21 years of experience here at Grand Teton that the shared investment you're considering through the reauthorization of the Great American Outdoors Act will provide an outstanding return. That impact will not only economically benefit our community, our state, and our nation, it will also reinfuse a bit of the magic of a visit to a national park. An improved visitor experience facilitates a broad and deep connection to what makes this place so incredible. Those connections in turn inspire Americans to become lifelong park supporters. I respectfully urge the subcommittee to reauthorize the Great American Outdoors Act. The results speak for themselves right here at Jenny Lake and across Grand Teton. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matson, and thank you to all the witnesses for your testimony. We'll now move into member questions, and I first recognize the gentlelady from Wyoming, Ms. Hageman, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you. And one of the messages that has come through very loud and clear is the need to make sure that we are considering the future demands and needs of these programs in these national parks and these federal lands. I have historically been a water attorney and dealt with a lot of water issues throughout the state of Wyoming and Nebraska and Colorado. One of the things that I see when I look at our reservoirs, for example, Pathfinder Reservoir, Seminole, Lendo, when you look at these and you realize that they were constructed, some of them 100 years ago. Pathfinder Dam, I believe, closed around 1909, so it's over 100 years. And you think about what they invested in those facilities 100 years ago, and you realize that they really weren't building them for themselves. They were building them for us. And that is exactly the way that we need to look at the programs and the projects for what we're talking about here with GOA. I recognize that. We constantly have to be thinking about what we're going to be doing with our infrastructure to make sure that the next generation and the next generation after that is able to enjoy these incredible resources that we have. Superintendent Jenkins, I want to thank you for your service to the park, to our state, and to the country. And in your testimony, you mentioned the need to rejuvenate the infrastructure to support access for the remainder of the 21st century. Updating GOA to modernize and enhance access to the parks is also a focus of this committee. I think that's been clear with the comments that have been made today. And it is part of the reason that we are here. Based on your experience with GOA funds over the past few years, what recommendations do you have for us? And are there any lessons learned from the field that Washington, D.C. policymakers should know? We are here to learn from you. So please give us what information and advice you have in terms of reauthorizing GOA.
Representative Hageman, thank you very much for the question. I appreciate that. I think there are many lessons that could be learned, and I think the National Park Service and the Department of Interior would be very interested in working through the technical assistance steps to be able to provide that feedback as legislation is crafted. A few suggestions. I think that, as Leslie Madsen said, is creating the authorities for us to be able to leverage public-private funds more effectively would enable us to both stretch the federal dollars further, as well as also enable us to move more expeditiously and efficiently to be able to plan and complete projects. Those partnerships are ways that we can be able to help prepare for the future. I think the work that is going on in terms of exploring how to streamline our contracting processes and procurement processes would greatly benefit folks in the field to be able to implement projects more quickly. Those are two key areas, but I know that my compatriots elsewhere in the field have an abundance of ideas, and through the technical assistance program, we can would like to surface those.
Well, my office and yours has worked well together over the last 2.5 years, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would provide that information to us so that we have a written document and we can go through and prioritize the ideas that you have. Ms. Calder, I'm going to turn to you. As you know, in Wyoming, we say that tourism is one of our 3 legacy industries alongside energy and agriculture. And the work your organization and the business community does definitely drives that point home. In your testimony, you mentioned steps your organization has taken to manage the guest journey end to end, and this includes modernization efforts. As part of a GOA reauthorization effort, we are considering reforms to make it stronger and build from lessons that we have learned over the last 5 years. I'm going to ask for your recommendations as well. What modernization efforts could federal partners pursue to pair with the modernization efforts the tourism and business sector are implementing?
Thank you, Representative Hagerman. It's a great question, and it's something that we've learned both through the Travel and Tourism Board and through our partnerships with federal agencies as well as local hospitality organizations. I think it's important to remember as we look to the future that the visitor doesn't know who owns what. They are looking at an all-encompassing experience, and I think one of the areas that tourism has struggled, and I would encourage, is investment in technology for planning ahead, for platforms, for reservations, and perhaps even managing capacities. This has become a standard in many areas of tourism. The guest is familiar with this type of management. Additionally, I think there are different things we can do to ensure that when the guest arrives, they have information, modern digital communications, as you saw on the boards there. At the Travel and Tourism Board, we not only encourage visitation and welcome visitors, but we want to make sure visitors understand what it's like to be here in our ecosystem, whether it's how far to stay from away from wildlife, whether it's to make sure to put out your campfire. That's another thing to learn that we could bring into the modern era. Additionally, some of the ambassador programs we've been able to fund through the Travel and Tourism Boards has been really supplemental in supporting the experience guests have, whether they are people at campsites or in dispersed areas in the national forests. We've been able to have boots on the ground for people to really communicate directly with visitors, and this is really important for how they act and the impressions they get when they visit. But I think the needs are great. The amount of funds we have has been really instrumental in mitigating visitor impacts as well, whether it's through public transportation, whether it's through finding creative solutions for parking, as you all saw this morning. That's definitely a challenge the Park Service and the businesses locally are facing. As we see increased demand for visitors to come to these magnificent places, we're going to have to think about how they're getting there and how we can best ensure they have a world-class experience when they arrive.
Thank you very much for that information. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank to each of you for your testimony. It was all wonderful. I loved reading it in preparation for this. Ms. Brengel, you mentioned, and I said about how important it is for there to actually be people to carry out the work to make sure that everything that all of you described happens, right? Things don't appear, right? It takes people to run the park, to run the concessions, to take the tickets, to whatever we're charging to whomever, to actually, say, do you have a pass? Here, this is what it costs. Here's some safety information that is important. And as we pointed out, President Trump's actions to reduce the federal workforce, we now have the Park Service about 24% down on permanent staff since January. President Trump also suggested a $1 billion cut to the National Park Service. The support for the National Park Service is so evident because Congress, both on the House and the Senate side, rejected those cuts and actually directed that there be full staffing and that we make sure that we staff enough to meet our mission. Can we meet our mission with a 24%, 25%, or $1 billion cut?
No way. There's no way. And we actually did we looked at the budgets of all of the individual park units, and our analysis was that 350 park units would essentially have to shut down. And nobody wants that. Everyone here loves our national parks. And so $1 billion cut is simply unreasonable. And when you think about the Park Service budget, it's 1/15 of 1% of the entire federal budget. So I don't think that was really a realistic recommendation that was made. But just to add to what you said about the Park Service staff, even this summer was tough on many parks. We saw visitor centers have reduced hours, search and rescue staff diminished, maintenance staff diminished, people coming off of trail maintenance to do custodial work. Even this summer was unsustainable. So part of what we're coming to talk to all of you about today is making sure that we sort of reverse some of these actions that have been taken and lift the hiring freeze. One of the things I hear from superintendents a lot in the last couple of months is vacancies. We need to fill these positions, especially leadership positions throughout the Park Service.
And I think it's really important that we increase the morale so that people aren't worried that they're going to lose their jobs, right?
So they want to work for the Park Service.
They want to work because it's such a great job. Like my son, I need to tell you, this is his dream job, what you have described. And I have taken them hiking across that lake. We got on a boat 10 years ago, went across that lake and hiked up to Moran and all those wonderful places. So it is inspiring. But we need to make sure we have that morale. I wanted to just quickly, Ms. Mattson, we need to remember that this isn't just, we have a maintenance that's really important, but we also have the Legacy Restoration Fund and the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which are key because we need to both conserve and make sure that we add those lands that are essential. Can you speak quickly about how the LWCF helped your coalition acquire the Kelly parcel and why that was important for the Grand Teton National Park?
Yes, thank you for that question. We actually used it twice for the acquisition of 2 parcels, the Antelope Flats parcel in 2016. So that was a $46 million purchase from the state of Wyoming for a piece of state land here in Grand Teton, $23 million from Land Waters Conservation Fund, and $23 million that we raised as an organization. And then late last calendar year, we purchased the Kelly parcel, or the Park Service purchased the Kelly parcel. It was appraised for $62.5 million. The federal government brought forward that amount from LWCF for that purchase, but the deal we made with the state of Wyoming was to pay $100 million. So we raised the $40 million to complete that purchase. So those were very key funds to add over 1,200 acres to Grand Teton.
Thank you. And Mr. Phillips, I'm going to run out of time, and the chairman is going to say you ran out of time. I really want to thank you for focusing on the fact that wildlife, this area, it's huge for small business. Can you just quickly say why that is so important, that these are small businesses that are thriving?
100%. Yeah, Representative. Thank you for that question. Undoubtedly, wildlife drives tourism. Along with these protected public lands, and that's something to be conscious about. As we move forward. Top migration, top scientists in this ecosystem, they are scared. They are telling me, and conservation groups and the Park Service, that in the next 5 to 10 years, the wildlife as we see it now, will not exist unless drastic measures are taken. And these are from professors, doctorates that they study these, they commit their life to this. So I encourage, everyone here today and all your colleagues, to remember that. And if we don't have the wildlife resource, visitation will not be as it is. And there are studies to document that. Happy to bring those to your attention.
Thank you. I now yield, but before I do, Mr. Chairman, I'd like unanimous consent to enter into the record the New York Times article, Trump shrank staffing of national parks, see how many are struggling.
Without objection.
Thank you.
So ordered. Gentlelady's time's expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Representative Doug LaMalfa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, and for everybody to gather here today. This is an amazing place to hold a committee hearing. Sure beats being back in D.C., and I'm sure the travel for you is a lot better too. So I'm excited that we want to take the bill in a direction that's going to promote efficiency on that. And as we've been struggling with in recent years, a $2 trillion annual deficit. there's in the federal budget. We've got to be looking at every measure. So that's why in this new administration, this new era, we've been looking at everything. And so difficult decisions, but it's also exciting that in the bill we passed recently, the whether you want to call it the Big Beautiful Bill or the Budget Reconciliation Act, as was mentioned earlier by my colleagues, $16 billion in new revenue from energy that can go directly towards this cause here. And so that'll make up for a lot of things. So what I'm always looking for, you can't always control how much income you get, but you can sure do things to try and control costs. And the cost of doing business for our parks, or for any aspect of society, but in this case, parks today, when you want to do projects, where you want to get something done, it can often require a lengthy NEPA process. And we had a good ride up here with Superintendent Jenkins. Chip, thank you for some information you imparted with us. And I know he's really thinking about this, because we're talking about roads and, you know, should you do a permanent superhighway, or should you fix what you have and, you know, look what you can do in the future with longer term with that money. So if you're able to get those projects done a lot more efficiently, and I harken back to things we struggle with in our forest system as well. If you need to change a pipe under a road, a culvert, it requires a NEPA process. Now, the road's already there, the pipe is already there. So as that applies to parks, Mr. Jenkins, tell us a little bit about what you have to face when we know that in the last version of the bill, 35% of the money, especially in fiscal year 2023, went to planning and compliance. 35% of what the money was put forward in GOA, 35% in planning. And so what do you think about that? What's that look like on the ground for you here, sir?
Representative Lamalfa, thank you for your question. I think we, as a superintendent, the National Park Service and the Department of Interior, I think we share your concerns and interested in working with the committee and Congress in terms of exploring options in order to be able to improve our efficiency and effectiveness for doing the planning and compliance functions. Having said that, it's also, I think, important to understand, as we've heard from testimony here, is that we're in the forever business, and we are here to be able to care for the natural and historic resources, and we want to make sure that we have highly efficient processes that allow us to make decisions quickly and to ensure that we both spend our funding wisely and also are making decisions that are protecting the resources that we are charged as stewards to be.
I want to drill down, though, more on the NEPA aspect and even the Endangered Species Act, because if you watch the fireworks in our committee sometimes, where we have these discussions, just trying to move the ball a little bit to have better results, quicker results, and still achieve good environmental goals, we need to have reforms to NEPA and Endangered Species Act. We have some issues there that are causing us not to be able to do things that would normally be helpful in managing our forests and make them more fire preventative, you know. So, but also in this conversation about renewing the bill, we do need to have the dollars that we are getting have a little more equitable spread. As we talked about earlier, the DC Beltway project that absorbed a bunch of park money, that doesn't have, that's not correct. And then a project in my home state of San Francisco, in Mrs. Pelosi's old district, it received more money in that one project than 44 other states got in their entirety, around $200 million. And so we've got our job to do on this in here in improving how the bill is implemented. Ms. Mattson, NEPA requirements, what are you seeing on that on the philanthropic side? You're trying to use private funds to match. Are you seeing these overhead costs blowing up what you're trying to do as well?
Thank you for the question, sir. Really, the NEPA process is on the Park Service side of the project. So when we put a project together, such as the one we're going to tour later today, we work together to determine the project timeline based on construction, based on the weather in Jackson Hole with a short amount of time. So really, that's always on the side of the Park Service. So that is not something that is impacting.
No, but you see your dollars perhaps, do you? I'll ask you, do you see your dollars being bled off on very time-consuming and costly planning that should, especially when you're talking existing infrastructure, it's being improved or upgraded.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Really, those expenses are on the park side of the ledger. As I mentioned, when we do projects, we bring funding to the table, they bring funding to the table. Our funding is for the extra special. It's the stone walls, it's these so we're not seeing that impact.
Well, you don't directly. I need to yield back here, but the bottom line is there's less money going towards the projects. As hard as you work to raise the money, even if it's just federal money, your money doesn't get to go as far because of all the delay and extra cost that really doesn't make the project better or even more environmentally sound. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentlemen's time's expired. The chair now recognizes a gentlelady from Nevada who's gone through the woes of travel to get here. Ms. Lee, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Great to be here. Thank you all, and thanks to all the witnesses. As a lifelong outdoor lover and a representative of a state with the most public land south of Alaska, my vote for the Bipartisan GO Act was one of the most gratifying for me and my constituents. And the Explore Act runs a close second to that. And although I'm from Nevada, I consider Jackson my second home. And in fact, it has been my family's second home for over 25 years. Whether it's daily hikes or bikes in the Red Rock Canyon in Nevada, or countless days paddling rivers and lakes, hiking and biking and skiing these incredible mountains, I can tell you that this member of Congress remains committed to preserving our great American treasures. And I'd like to thank the incredible park rangers and the team here at Grand Teton for your incredible continued work and for hosting us this morning. And I'm very hopeful that our committee is inspired by today's events and will reauthorize and strengthen the Legacy Restoration Fund to get serious about tackling the interior's maintenance backlog and to ensure that our nation's public lands can be experienced and enjoyed by all for years to come. Superintendent Jenkins, as I noted on the outset, I have long enjoyed biking in the Grand Teton National Park. And last July, I sent a letter commending the piloting of an alternate bike route along the Moose Wilson Road, utilizing the existing levee access to the Rockefeller Preserve. I've traveled that road for years, as have many, and am very familiar with the safety challenges that this narrow and often busy road presents. In my letter, I encouraged the park to transition this pilot into a permanent seasonal option for cyclists, and I believe that solutions like this to improve active, eco-friendly transportation in the Moose Wilson corridor serve as a good example of thoughtful steps that can be taken to enhance the visitor experience while continuing to protect wildlife and park resources. Can you tell me how the project's coming along, and are we any closer to transitioning to a more permanent solution?
Representative Lee, thank you for the question. And you're right. Biking in Grand Teton is a great way to experience the park. My wife and I are out enjoying the bike paths multiple times a week, just like you are. The pilot bike program, which we have run for 2 years, we're evaluating the results of that to see about what we want to do in terms of going forward with that. We see that the GOA-funded Moose Wilson Road improvements have significantly improved bike access on the Moose Wilson Road, both enabling more people to use it as well as also making it safer. We're going to continue to be exploring how we can support existing biking as well as expanding biking in the park. I'll just also point out that our highest priority is actually to see about connecting a bike path to the Grovant campground along the Grovant Road. We are, which is the largest campground in the park. We are seeing a significant increase in families trying to ride from the campground along the Grovant Road, which carries high-speed traffic, and we really want to make that a safer experience for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Each year, millions of people visit these lands, 6.4 at Lake Mead in Nevada, 3.6 here. And currently, we have several RF projects in the works, water infrastructure like Culture Bay, wastewater improvements. These aren't the most exciting projects, but they're essential for visitors and staff. Ms. Brangle, I wanted to ask you, you and your colleagues have been closely monitoring the Department of Interior's implementation of these and other legacy fund projects. How well and how effectively has DOI been able to get these projects to completion? And what challenges do the reductions in workforce present for this work to continue?
These are great questions. Remember when the bill passed through Congress, we were deep in COVID. And so the Park Service had to deal with supply chain issues and to get the shovel-ready projects moving while having to start the compliance process for the new projects. And so right now, according to the Park Service and the DOI report that was issued a month ago, 30% of the projects are at completion or near completion, which is pretty amazing after 5 years. So compliments to the Interior Department and the Park Service for moving quickly and efficiently and still doing the compliance while getting these projects up and running. We're worried, especially with the Denver Service Center having reduced staff and will continue to have reduced staff, that we're not going to be able to fill the vacancies there in order to continue to move projects effectively and efficiently. So that's why we think a good complement to this legislation and extending the Great American Outdoors Act would be to lift the hiring freeze for the Park Service as well, so they can have the staff to move this along.
Absolutely. In your written testimony, the 2-page list of the actions that have really disrupted not only your staff, your current staff, but the ability to attract new staff is really quite incredible. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Montana for 5 minutes. Mr. Downing, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. Thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to wave onto your committee. And also thank you, Representative Hegeman, for opening your beautiful home state to us. This is an amazing setting for doing this. I was blessed. I was allowed to raise my kids just outside of Yellowstone Park and experiencing that wildlife identification and tracking, the hiking, the swimming, the camping, all of that stuff. And now they're all adults. It's a little bit different now, but I got to say, and I shouldn't do this plug, but I'm very excited about it. This spring, I'm going to be a first-time grandfather, and I'm looking forward to having the vicarious thrill of introducing another child to one of our national treasures. So really excited about that. Our national parks are more than beautiful landscapes, as I've told you my own experiences. But they're also engines for local economies, they're classrooms, they're havens for wildlife. And last year, Grand Teton welcomed over 3.6 million visitors. That's more than 3 times the population of my home state of Montana. And that generated nearly $1.3 billion in local spending and supported over 8,400 jobs. The Great American Outdoors Act has helped address deferred maintenance, but as we approach our nation's 250th birthday, Congress has a chance to reauthorize and reform GOA to modernize our parks, improve access, and create new recreation opportunities. And I'm going to start with Superintendent Jenkins. The Grand Teton National Park currently has a $343 million deferred maintenance backlog. If GOA funding were flexible enough to focus on modernization and visitor experience rather than just roads and wastewater systems, what projects would you prioritize?
In addition to the list that you have, the 3 areas that we would really focus on as you've heard, is actually Coulter Bay. And we would see about doing a wholesale rejuvenation of Coulter Bay to restore that as one of the primary destinations in Grand Teton. As I just mentioned with Representative Lee, priority in terms of increasing bicycle vehicle safety out to Grovant Campground, our largest campground in the park. And then third is to meet the need of our visitation, which is there's a large percentage of people that love to drive through the park and take in the views and stop at pullouts. It would be a priority for us to see about rejuvenating and revitalizing places like Oxbow Bend, Willow Flats, the Snake River Overlook, to really have those places more welcoming for both private visitors as well as also the commercial tours that make use of those.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Ms. Mattson. How has the foundation leveraged GOA funding to attract private support, and what strategies could be applied nationwide to maximize public-private partnerships while keeping parks affordable for all Americans?
Thank you for the question. The majority of the funding that we've leveraged for projects has been the Centennial Fund, FLORIA funding, et cetera. So the GOA funding has focused on the deferred maintenance projects that Superintendent Jenkins has mentioned to you. Those projects, those deferred maintenance projects, are really the ones that we're not going to participate in, generally speaking, and looking backward. A new sewer system is not one. I'm good at my job, but I'm not sure how effective I could be in raising funding for a failing sewer system. So we've used other funding sources to leverage our private philanthropy up until this point.
Well, thank you. I'm going to move on to Ms. Calder. How do well-maintained and modernized parks impact local economies and tourism-dependent communities? And what would be the economic consequences if needed improvements were delayed?
Thank you, Representative. That's a great question. I think it would be a twofold result for the visitor. I think it would be not only there, without the infrastructure, it makes it very hard to attract visitors because the place starts to get the reputation that it's not a great experience when they arrive. And I think we continue to see increased demand for people who want to experience the national parks, whether it's people who live down the road or live in another continent. So I think without the continued investment in the parks, in the forests, in the resources that we have here, we're going to start to see people not have the experience. It won't be a world-class experience. And I just don't think that we're going to be efficiently moving people around the destination and being able to experience all it has to offer. We are all so blessed and lucky to be here, and we want to share that with people who visit. We do that in our messaging, and we want to make sure that we deliver on what we describe. We invite people to come and enjoy this as we welcome them here, and we want to ensure that when they arrive, they get the experience that they had hoped for when they dream. We often say in the Travel and Tourism Board that we're in the dreaming phase. We create a lot of content to make people dream about coming here. I personally came here on vacation one year and never left, actually. So I think that's where we need to deliver. We need to ensure that what we're saying to people in their dreaming phase is what they then experience in these outstanding public lands and through our local communities. It's all connected. It's one big ecosystem, and we have to continue to work together.
Well, thank you. And unfortunately, I've run out of time, but I want to thank all the witnesses for being here. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. And I recognize the gentlelady from American Samoa. I've had the opportunity to visit a national park in her congressional district. And Ms. Ridewagon, I recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Westerman. Talofa lava, Taiao Manuia. Thank you, Chairwoman Hageman, for hosting us in your beautiful district. And thank you to all of our witnesses, and a special thank you to Superintendent Jenkins and Grand Teton National Park for providing the venue for your hospitality. I had the privilege of serving on this committee when we passed the Great American Outdoors Act. The GOA made a new national commitment to the wonderful natural spaces that make up this country, attracting visitors to every state and territory. 5 years later, just in time for our nation's 250th birthday, we have an opportunity to reflect on the successes of the GOA and to evaluate how to improve on this law for reauthorization. And my questions are for anyone on the panel who wishes to answer. While the GOA made great headway into tackling the maintenance backlog of our national parks, it has become apparent that the scope was narrower than it could have been. Some of this has been covered in your testimonies, But how did our original focus on deferred maintenance miss the forest for the trees? That is to say, what impact has the focus on deferred maintenance had on routine maintenance or other improvement projects? And do you find that such projects received less attention or manpower focus in the pursuit of GOA funding for deferred maintenance? Superintendent.
I saw all the heads turn towards me. Representative, thank you for your question. All I can speak for is here at Grand Teton, and the answer for that is that we were very, very appreciative of GOA. It enabled us to do projects in a way that we would not otherwise have been able to have done. We would have, for example, the improvements on the Moose Wilson Road corridor, creating the granite entrance station, the equestrian trailhead, adding entrance lanes. All of those would have been parsed up into 6 or 8 projects that would have been done over 10 or 12 years. And so it would have been more expensive, taken longer, and been more disruptive to visitors and residents. And GOA enabled us to package that together and to be so much more efficient in terms of getting those projects done, which in turn enabled us to be able to, we took a moderately hard road to maintain and now have a paved road that is easier for us to maintain. And so we were able to now reallocate resources to doing work elsewhere in the park. So thank you very much.
And to add, when we originally lobbied on the bill, and we started working on deferred maintenance issues 20 years ago with the committee, and these issues were being raised by the Bush administration at that time, we knew Yellowstone was in dire need of money for the Loop Road and Grand Canyon, the water pipeline. We were coming to all of you, begging you for this money to upgrade, all of these national park units. What we did back then, when we were designing the original Great American Outdoors Act, is you'll notice a line in the bill that allows all of the agencies to add other projects to an existing deferred maintenance project, because we said at the time, if you're repairing the roof of a visitor center, that's your moment to also improve other aspects of the building as well. So we actually added that to the bill with the foresight of thinking this will allow the Park Service to not only take care of this asset, but also improve upon it. Well, now we've learned after 5 years that little provision, that little sentence in the bill has been very meaningful for all the agencies and has allowed them to replace buildings, to add features. The Lewis River Bridge is a great example. More parking, improved trailheads, better visitor access. And so what I would do is take a look at the bill again and make sure that modernization piece is more prominently in the bill. But we still have so much deferred maintenance with the Park Service. We still have parks that desperately need more money for projects. So we'd hate to lose the emphasis on deferred maintenance because we still have a lot of assets in poor condition. So let's keep lifting up the parks while modernizing them, because I think it's working out really well right now.
Yes, please.
Representative, thank you. And I think a piece of a larger picture that certainly should be and needs to be considered, right? We look at visitor trends, and visitor growth is growing exponentially. And also, how visitors use the parks and these landscapes evolves and changes over time. So as we invest in, important deferred maintenance projects and modernization, certainly need to be conscious of those elements.
I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Ladies, time's expired. I now recognize myself for questions. Superintendent Jenkins, Grand Teton is unique. And we had this conversation earlier. There's some statistic out there that says across the national parks, something like 90 or 95% of the people never get more than 100 yards off of the path. But you called Grand Teton a backcountry park because the trails are used so much. My idea when I became chairman of the committee was that we we promote conservation through access. When we can get people into the parks, when they can see things and have that better experience, that anticipation the experience shouldn't be a letdown from the anticipation. It should be even better than the anticipation. How do we use GOA to do what you've done here across the other parks?
Wow, that's Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. Let me start with saying yes, as I think it is important to understand that visitation, first of all, visitation is not like a thermometer where the number goes up or down. Visitation is more like a balloon. In the last 15 years, visitation at Grand Teton National Park has increased 15%. But over that same 10 years, trail use has gone up 25%. So while we have more people here, we also have more people on trails, or we have people recreating differently, more people floating on the river, more people working with guides to climb the Grand. And so what we're doing here at Grand Teton is we are trying to look out 10, 15, 20 years and anticipate the growth of visitation and where we need to make substantial investments in infrastructure in order to be able to support that visitation. So as you've heard me say already is Coulter Bay is a place where on an average day, we can have 10 to 11,000 people. We actually believe that we can accommodate more people there. Right. But in order to be able to do that, we need to make sure that the toilets flush. We need to make sure that people have places to park, that they have a park ranger to talk to get their questions answered, a place to be able to get lunch.
If I can move on, another thing that you did with GOA was put the new lanes in, the horse trailer station just past the entryway. What a great use of the funds to allow people to get into the park more. I know that in talking to Secretary Burgum, he wants to streamline the visitor experience of getting through the entryways. You've used GOA to do that, but also there may be ways to use better computer systems and reservation systems to make that work. But I think a key component of it is the partnership with the private sector, whether it's through the Park Foundation or through the concessioners. An amazing thing we have here with Teton Village is it's not part of the park, it borders the park, and it allows access to the park and to the private park. And Ms. Calder, you said people don't travel to see something ordinary. I agree. They travel for that experience. You also said visitors don't know who owns what. You had another great quote that I couldn't write down fast enough, but thank you for that. Can you talk about how, from the private sector, you're able to work in harmony with the park and create that seamless transition where visitors come here and have a better experience, and by the access that you provide at Grand Teton?
Yes, it's a great question, and I think that the most important thing to say to that end is that we all work together. We're constantly communicating, we're thinking about the visitor journey from end to end, and we are connected logistically, or we touch each other, but also in the way we treat the visitor experience. We, as the Travel and Tourism Board, we want to make sure when people come here, they get to experience all of it. And whether the guest comes to the parks, which they probably will, or in the national forests, or in the gateway communities or the towns, we're always trying to ensure that when they come, it's easy for them to get around. We educate them on what they can do and try to give them some advice on how to experience our destination to its fullest. They don't know when one thing ends and the other begins, so it's really important that we are always sharing that information so they can experience the whole destination, because that's what will truly be extraordinary.
And Mr. Phillips, you're in the business of enhancing people's experience when they come to the park. This may be self-explanatory, but when the Park Service uses GOA to improve the facilities, how does that help you in your small business, which you said without access, our opportunities vanish? How important is it for you to be able to work with the park and for them to have good facilities so that you can enhance the experience when visitors get here.
Chairman, yeah, thank you for that question. It is so crucial that our guests are comfortable on the programs, they're enjoying themselves. You know, for example, we look at the Moose Wilson corridor, which was funded by AGOA, and you know that historically that was a dirt road. And I remember after a long day driving with guests from Yellowstone, 260 miles round trip, and to have that last 10 miles, potholes, washboards, narrow roads, not a lasting impression we want to leave with our guests. So just 100%. The infrastructure improvements benefits the guest experience, and it makes for happy customers. They're going to come back. They're going to visit additional national parks. We know these national parks good for our wellness, mental health wellness, fresh air. So that's it.
Thank you. Now, my time has expired as well, but as being chairman, I get to turn the clock off. But I'm turning it off for one purpose, and that's to allow each of you to tell us something that we may not have asked that you want to tell the committee. And we'll start with Ms. Mattson and just work down the table.
Thank you very much. One thing I wanted to just add in regards to the funding to help with the deferred maintenance, Superintendent Jenkins and Ms. Bringell talked about new buildings, et cetera. When we were involved with the construction of the Craig Thomas Discovery and Visitor Center, it was led by the late Senator Craig Thomas, and hearing about deferred maintenance at that time, we determined that we should raise an extra $2 million that we have in a capital reserve fund for that building, because we were concerned that that beautiful building would fall into disrepair. So I just encourage you, as you think about the reauthorization of this bill, to consider the new things that you're bringing money to and thinking about making sure that they stay at the level at which they are, because then we're going to just continue, right, to compound the deferred maintenance. So we did that on the private sector side, and so with the visitor center, if the Park Service has an element that needs to be updated or whatever, they come to us with a request, and we fund that request, and that's private funding that is helping to support that building.
Thank you. Ms. Bringle?
Yeah, we want to play the long game with all of you. We want to make sure that we don't dig another hole for 30 years, 40 years from now. So one thing that we want to make sure that you all are considering in the bill is something to take care of cyclical maintenance moving forward. And Senator King brings this up all the time on the Senate side when we talk about Great American Outdoors Act. But if we are going to create a fund, can we do something that is even longer lasting to make sure that the Park Service can continue to make the repairs over time? And what we've seen with appropriations is it just hasn't kept up with maintenance over the years. And I feel like we work on this with every administration and every Congress. So if we could think about a pot of money that we could create that would last even further than the number of years that we'll have for this bill, and help pay for cyclical maintenance, I think that would really help the Park Service.
Yeah, those foreign visitors fees might be an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I think Anelia, your wonderful staff person, which I can say out loud on camera right now.
And we would all agree.
Yes, she's amazing. She and I have talked about this, and could we sort of use that money sort of long term to pay for that, just as when we increased the senior pass during the Centennial Bill, that money continues to grow for those projects under the Centennial Bill. So this could create something for cyclical.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Chairman. And yeah, a couple points I'd like to make. One is what an incredible opportunity it is for the private sector to be working within our public lands. And I feel, and my team, we feel incredibly fortunate to have that opportunity to connect visitors, to help the service interact with these visitors and connect them to the landscape. And it's been it's been interesting over, my 20 years working with the Park Service here and seeing, different administrations come and go, different superintendents come and go, and staff. But we have one of the best right here in Grand Teton, as I think y'all know. Some other things to consider, other things that we should consider keeping the visitor economy intact, right? I'm very passionate about that. It's my livelihood. And I think for one, the visitor economy is a pathway to protect these incredible natural resources. And the visitor economy does, chip in to some degree. Hunters and anglers have done an incredible amount of conservation work over the past 100 years. Right now where we are at with, the visitors visiting parks, exploring the wildlife, protected public lands, I really feel that there's an incredible opportunity to the visitor economy to do much more to promote the conservation of what they're coming to enjoy. We also need to consider, properly staffed parks. The Park Service concession office here, they do a phenomenal job talking to them on the phone. Like, they are stressed, they're burnt out, and it's something for consideration. I think, empowering local leaders in park units around the country, local superintendent leaders to have authority, I think is incredible. And then also, and I love what came out of Congress recently, like giving authority and directive to local superintendent leaders to better engage the local county and town governments. I think that is crucial.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Ms. Calder.
Yes, thank you. So I would say the Great American Outdoors Act invests in our greatest natural treasure, the parks and the public lands, and this impacts millions of people who visit. It changes people's lives. I would also reiterate, when you invest in parks and public lands, you need to invest in people. The people are what make it all work. Outside of the infrastructure, the parks and the national forests and these public lands need personnel and people on the ground and people in administration to make sure they can execute on all the things that the visitor is expecting and to run these areas smoothly. So I would encourage the committee to consider how people impact the visitor experience and when people come to these public lands as well. And lastly, I would just say, as we sit here under our skyscrapers, the Tetons, I think that the parks and the national forests and the public lands around the country are something everyone gets to experience, and it's an investment in our entire country. So I would feel proud of that.
Superintendent Jenkins.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I have a couple of points. The first I would say is that I have worked all over the country. Sorry. They're used to this. Right? Yeah. There's magic in this place. There's magic in this place because of these people. The community here is, I think in this magic, there is something that the Park Service, the department, Congress can learn about in terms of the collaboration between the state of Wyoming, Teton County, the town of Jackson, and the business community. The way that we work together to be stewards of this place. Sorry. It's a heartfelt sentiment. I apologize for that. Having said that, I also just really express my appreciation to you, Mr. Chairman, as well as the entire committee for taking the President's budget proposal to consider the reauthorization of Mr. Trump's GOA Legacy Restoration Fund. It would make a tremendous difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, and no reason to apologize. Thank you again for your passion and for Park Service employees all across the country. Do have a letter here from the Teton County Board of Commissioners, which I know some of them are here today. And in this letter, it says sound management of these public lands protects a thriving ecosystem with high quality wildlife and fish habitat, clean water, and abundant opportunities for outdoor recreation. These assets provide the foundation of our local economic prosperity, our community character, and our quality of life. We strongly support reauthorizing the Great American Outdoors Act, and without objection, I submit this to the record. So ordered. Again, I want to thank all the witnesses for their valuable testimony, and thank you to the members who traveled here. Some of them struggled more than others to get here, and we even lost a few that had planned to be here. But thank you for your effort to come out for this important bipartisan hearing. Members of the committee may have some additional questions for our witnesses, and we would ask that the witnesses respond to these questions in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. I'd like to direct any interested members of the public to fill out one of our comment sheets, which are available on the table by the exit. You can also pick up a postcard which has more information about how to follow the committee's efforts to reauthorize and improve the Great American Outdoors Act. Finally, I encourage everyone to visit the Committee on Natural Resources website, naturalresources.house.gov, where we will post a video recording of this hearing. You can also find information about the committee's work expanding and improving recreational access to our nation's wonderful parks and public lands. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.